Clintonville. I want to thank everybody for joining us for this second informational meeting regarding the events of now the past 4 days and 4 nights here in our city. I want to thank all of you residents that are here tonight for, again, your continued patience as we work through this process. Last night we talked about many things that had been looked at and taken off the list of possibilities. As you know, our main goal is and has been as your city officials to keep you safe and give you answers to the events of this week. The United States Geological Survey, otherwise known as the USGS, is the government agency responsible for locating and determining earth movement, such as earthquakes. At the time the events began on Monday, there were only 2 USGS permanent seismology stations in our area. One is located in Linden, Iowa, and the second is between North Twin Lake, Wisconsin, and Lakeview Desert, Wisconsin. The information is fairly quickly accessible from these permanent stations. 2 stations make it difficult for the USGS to determine locations if there is possible earth movement activity, as the most common results come from a use of at least 4 stations. Obviously, the reason here that we don't have a lot is because earthquakes are not common in Wisconsin. The Incorporated Research Institute of Seismology, otherwise known as IRIS, has an array of portable stations throughout the United States which move around our country. The data from these portable stations is not generally available very rapidly to the USGS National Earthquake Information Center, called the NEIC. As of early this morning, after our informational meeting last night, the USGS was able to gather additional information and data from our area from at least 6 more portable stations to give them a total of 8 stations to gather data from. The results of their analysis this morning has determined that on Tuesday, March 20th, the second night of Clintonville's tornadoes, thunderous noises at 12:15 a.m., our community did in fact experience an earthquake that registered 1.5 on the earthquake magnitude scale. It is assigned a depth of 5 kilometers, which converts to 3.1 miles inside the earth. They believe that the event is shallow, but do not know how shallow, and due to the fact that we could all hear such prominent noises, it may be even more shallow than determined. Due to the fact that the data that is available, they cannot confirm a location or magnitude of the first evening's activity. However, they do show activity on a few stations. Representatives from the USGS have described our series of events as something called a swarm of several small earthquakes in a very short amount of time. In other places in the United States, a 1.5 earthquake would not be felt, but the type of rock that Wisconsin has transmits seismic energy very well. Although 1.5 earthquakes many times are not felt, there are numerous examples from the USGS that are evident that when an event like this is close to a community, it can be felt even below a magnitude of 1. An earthquake that will create typical significant damage to property registers at a scale of 5.5 or higher. Typical mid-magnitude 4 earthquakes sometimes experience things like cracked windows. This helps us understand why none of you experienced physical property damage during these events. It is not common for people to feel such a small earthquake, but we do know that you did feel the earth-shifting movement. When the USGS determined the epicenter of our earthquake, there can be a variance of 2 to 3 miles, and therefore we know that this epicenter was in our community, but it is not likely that we will ever pinpoint an accurate epicenter. The one that was technically determined by the USGS is not in the heart of where you felt the quake. An earthquake is defined as a movement of rocks along a fault. That shifting of rocks creates a fault, and in this case, the fault is a very small one since the earthquake is of a very low magnitude. There is no way to determine if earthquakes have occurred on what some have called in the past the Pigeon River Fault, or if some other unknown fault is known in our area. There is no way to say for certain whether our area will ever again experience an earthquake, but it is still very likely, although not guaranteed, that any future earthquakes that we experience would again be on the low end of the earthquake magnitude scale. At this time, since we have determined the cause of our rumbling thunderous activity, and since it appears to be continuing to decrease significantly, we are not certain now that we will install the seismic vibration monitoring devices. We do have an example here of one if anyone wants to look at them from our engineers, Rupert Milkey. If any more significant activity does occur in our community, we've been reassured by the USGS that they at the federal government level will install additional seismonic meters in our community and in our area. We are glad that after approximately 86 hours, the community can rest knowing that you do have an answer. The mystery is solved. We have experienced an earthquake here in Clintonville. I would like to thank the entire city staff, Waupaca County Emergency Management Director Andy Carlin, and all the experts who have been with us through this investigation for their tireless hours spent trying to find answers. In addition, I would like to thank Brian Sullivan, a UW-Madison engineering student who has spent the last 24 hours in Clintonville helping us measure noise levels in the community. I'd also like to thank Rupert Milkey for their time over the past few days helping us prepare for what we thought would be something we needed to continue to monitor. The city staff was not aware last night that there was additional information available that could be obtained by the USGS from these IRIS portable monitors, which is why this information was not discussed with you last night. At this point, I will be happy to answer any questions from the public, and after the meeting is completed, I will talk to the press. Thank you again for this patience as we worked our way through this event, and we are glad we have a resolution. I don't think we have microphones tonight, but if anybody wants to come forward to ask a question. Go ahead.
This isn't just a small little thing. And for you to say, oh, there was no earthquakes, no nothing like that going on. What about this going on for 6 months? Okay? 6 months we had trembling. 6 months we didn't have, we had little things here and there. They don't go on for 6 months, do they? And what about the damage? Yes, I still have damage, and I'm afraid still.
We understand. One of the things we would encourage is that the USGS is available to answer not only the citizens' questions and the media questions. Obviously, as city staff, we've had 4 days to learn an awful lot about this experience and about 3 hours to learn about earthquakes, since we didn't know that that is what it would be called. So we'll be happy to try and answer your questions. We understand that you're still concerned. What we know is that the only way for them to pinpoint actual activity is for us to give them specific times that people felt those rumblings. We will still send a list of times that people called in throughout the last few days, but going back over months, there would be no way for us to give the USGS any data that they could go back and try to pinpoint those, and the likelihood of that array of portable stations being anywhere where they would collect valuable data, unfortunately, is probably not ever going to come to be available to us as a community.
I would like to know from them, and I would like to gather this information ASAP, because, you know, like I said, 6 months ago, this a year ago, you know, we need to know. I mean, people going into people's homes and all that, there's so much of this kind of thing. Like you said, you don't know, you know, and they don't. I would like to have more information, more stuff done.
We won't be completed after tonight. We already will continue to do investigations. I think there's a lot of things that can be learned throughout the state of Wisconsin. There are not a lot of people, even in our state, that are experts on earthquakes because we haven't experienced them very much in Wisconsin. But what I can assure you is that we will continue to gather information and help all of you understand, although we have an answer here today, and we certainly at least closed one chapter of the book, we will continue to get answers, and we appreciate your comment. Are there any more questions?
I was asking a lot of questions.